HoosierIllustrated.com. John Alden with you here on a Wednesday. It's been a bit. Been a bit since Friday. Didn't have a show on Monday for a multitude of reasons. It was a holiday. Was originally going to do a show. Ended up having to do some extra stuff at my other job, as I mentioned on Friday. So I decided, you know what? Let's just take Monday off and do what most people do on holidays, which is not work, even though I did work my other job. So, and I enjoy doing this as well. So that's why I initially planned on doing a show. But hey, wasn't in the cards, but we're back. It's Wednesday. A lot of good stuff going on, a lot of stuff to react to. And we'll do that throughout today. But got a lot of good stuff coming up with Mr. Wright, our special guest on today's show. He came on back in November, I believe, right before the college basketball season tipped off. He did our first and, as of right now, only live show for Hoosier Illustrated, at least for when it comes to In Touch with Indiana Sports. I know we do the live post-game reactions all the time. But he's back once again for a lengthy period of time, so he will take up a majority of the show. But it's stuff that you guys will thoroughly enjoy, talking a whole heck of a lot about Indiana basketball, their potential for the rest of the year, as well as the Big Ten, and just a myriad of other college basketball topics, because, I mean, we are officially at the point in the year in the college athletics calendar where basketball really takes the forefront, because now, as of Monday, the college football playoff and therefore the football season as a whole is over. And it doesn't mean we aren't going to talk football every now and again. As you guys know, I love keeping up with Indiana football, and there are a couple things I want to get to today on that front. But it is, if it wasn't already basketball season, then it is now, right? And I know we still got the NFL going on as well, with the NFC and the AFC championship going on this weekend. And real quick, too, I have this, I want to call it an earworm, but that's not what it is. It's just something that keeps bothering me in my head that I just want to address real quick before, just so I can let it go and move on. Apologies once again for Friday, and not that the show was bad. It's just, it wasn't the show. For those who did or didn't watch Friday, you're aware that that the show that was put out was much shorter than it was supposed to be. For the very first time ever, me doing stuff on StreamYard, the file wouldn't process for some reason after I finished recording, so I had to re-record a much different and shorter version of the show. It's because you can't replicate something twice, especially when you've already reacted to it. You've had genuine thoughts, ideas, whatever. So that was frustrating on Friday. Hopefully that never happens again. I may try to figure out ways to prevent that from happening in the future. I don't know if there is anything I can do, but there's nothing. I mean, it doesn't matter what job you have. If you're doing something and you're happy with it and it's all of a sudden gone and you can't turn it in or whatever it might be for whatever job you have, submit it, that sort of thing, and you have to redo the entire thing, it's disheartening. And yeah, just hated that that's what happened on Friday, especially going into a time when I was taking the Monday off. So, but hey, we're back. I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good here on a Wednesday. Wherever you are in the country, it is probably cold where you're at. We have had some ridiculous temperatures. And I don't mind cold weather at all. I've made that known on the show many times already, I believe. But this is the length of time that we've had this type of weather going on. It's coming on 3+ weeks now, I feel like. Now, there's been some days of relief here and there, but this is crazy. We don't have, I mean, this may be closer to a normal winter than we normally get, but it feels like, at least where I'm at, we've had some very mild winters over the last, 5 to 10 years. I mean, there's been spells here and there, but nothing like we've experienced over the last few weeks. And again, I don't hate it. I do tend to like this type of weather, but maybe we can take a little break from it before we get back into it fully, as we do still have, today's January 22nd. I believe the first day of spring is usually somewhere between March 20th and 22nd, something along those lines. So we do have a ways to go before it officially becomes spring. But that also means we still have a ways to go with basketball season. And although basketball season has been very frustrating for many an Indiana fan, there are reasons, believe it or not, there are reasons to be optimistic. And I'm not saying that because I've been fairly pessimistic, I believe, over the last few weeks. But I'm not going to. I feel like I do this every time I have a guest on. I feel like I want to get into things that he and I talk about. So I do want to save all the stuff that is going to be said for that here in just a moment. But I guess real quick, there is a lot. There is a lot to still be hopeful about if you're an Indiana fan. Now, previous results have shown you that that may not be the case, and I will no longer be surprised if Indiana fails to live up to their potential. But I do think there is a lot of really good opportunities ahead for Indiana to turn things around if that's something that's in the cards. I know just a week or so ago we were not thinking that, and it's very easy when things go as badly as they did against Iowa and Illinois. It's very easy to get down, and understandably so, whenever it's kind of been the norm. But there's a reason you play the game. The season didn't end after Indiana lost by 25 points to Illinois at Assembly Hall, and the entire team had become a mockery. And I hate that, people. I don't want to tell people how to fan. I think I've said that before, and a lot of people say that. But it's very kind of ugly to see when the fans turn their backs on anything. It's, and not because, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't be angry when things are going wrong. That's not at all what I'm saying, because I get angry about things. Not the way that I did when I was younger, but I do get upset when things don't go the way that I want them to. But it's never good to see, the program's not in a good spot when the fan base very easily turns on the coaching staff, the players, any of that stuff. And I do think there is still some grace left for this team, and I hope they make the most of it. They're going to have another tough road game tonight. And it's Northwestern, and every road game is tough. That's why I say that, because although Indiana should probably win this game, we know that they can absolutely lose it, and we know that they can absolutely lose it in all the wrong ways. And hopefully that's not the case, because we'll have to revisit the discussion that we kind of opened up a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, right after the Iowa and Illinois losses. So hopefully things continue to trend in a positive trajectory. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. You got Northwestern tonight. After that, you have Maryland at home. And then begins the really insane gauntlet of teams. And it doesn't mean that you're going to lose all those games, but it just means things are going to be, you're going up against really good competition. And it's a good chance to bolster your resume if things go in your favor. So we'll talk more about that with Wright here in just a moment. But I do want to get into, I do want to go ahead and react to the college football playoff and some Indiana football related things as well, just because I think the way this is going to go, once the Wright segment concludes, I'll probably just do a few closing thoughts at the end and probably wrap the thing up after that. So I'll go ahead and get into the things I was going to save for after the Wright segment, but I think I'll go ahead and hit on it now, just because many of it is just kind of little quick hitters and just kind of, I say short thoughts. I know sometimes it can be long-winded, so maybe it's not really that short, but I do want to talk about a few college football related things. I love that coffee. And let's go ahead and get into that then real quick. Ohio State, of course, becomes the second Big Ten team in a row to win the college football national championship after Michigan last year, two bitter rivals. Now they're two most recent champions. And I learned this today. I didn't know that the Big Ten has not had back-to-back champions in 82 years. That's insane. And I don't know if that's, I'm assuming that's including like repeat champions in back-to-back years. I guess that means like even Ohio State or Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, whoever it may be. And I know Nebraska hasn't always been a part of the Big Ten. I guess they've never won back-to-back years. Or at least not in 82 years. So that's pretty crazy to think about. And even Paul Feinbaum, somebody who I've kind of always seen as just this SEC clown who will go to bat for the SEC no matter what because he's paid by them. He works for the SEC network. It feels like he's always, just kissing Alabama's ass any chance he can. And he did that throughout the season. But believe it or not, I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, if he's like what his motive is behind this, because it's very weird. But Paul Feinbaum, multiple times, has really ever since Georgia lost in the college football playoff, has really kind of understood that the SEC is not what it once was in college football. And the Big Ten has slowly but surely over the last 2 seasons been tilting the balance of power more so in its favor. And Paul Feinbaum openly admitted earlier, I don't know if it was today or a couple of days ago or when it was, but as of right now, the Big Ten is not just kings of college football because of Ohio State being the national champions, but they are the dominant force in the sport right now, which of course is a really good thing, especially when you see how much Indiana played a part in that this year. And I don't really know how much he credits Indiana to being a part of that, but of course, he did, I don't want to say he clowned Indiana, but I mean, he did act as if they weren't very deserving at multiple points during the season, but that might have been before he realized how good some of the other teams in the conference really were. And when you consider now the fact that their only 2 losses were the 2 teams that played for the national championship, and I mean, and they weren't necessarily close wins, although Indiana did make a good comeback attempt against Notre Dame. It goes to show that Indiana did play the 2 best teams in college football, and they didn't get completely destroyed as some other teams had. So they do belong in that upper tier conversation, not necessarily the elite of the elite, but they are that next tier below that, which is just outside. And it's going to take Indiana a long time. And maybe I shouldn't phrase it like that. It's going to take a lot of investment, years of investment, or I should say just consistent investment for Indiana football to get into that elite tier. And I don't know that they'll ever do that. I'm not ready to say that they're going to. I think that they're certainly going to try. But one thing that I guess I'll transition into next, and this is something I talked about on the Friday show extensively in the initial go round, the show that didn't process and wasn't published, unfortunately. So I'll talk a little bit about it right now. And then this will probably be the last thing we do. Or I got one more small thing. I guess we can go and hit on this. We'll talk about Brian. I'm gonna get into some Brian Haynes stuff is what it is. I kind of realize I'm going all over the place right now. And my apologies if that's hard to follow, but real quick, this is the AP poll, the final college football AP poll. In case you missed it, Indiana finished at number 10, which is of course a good thing. That's just a little small thing I wanted to mention. But into the last big thing, and then we'll talk basketball the rest of the way. I can pretty much promise you that. But Brian Haynes, a lot of the discussion last week was the fact that he reportedly, I should say, interviewed for the defensive coordinator position at Penn State. And I kind of talked about how if he were to get that job and accept and take that job, that could be problematic for Indiana if a lot of their defensive players decide to jump ship and join the Nittany Lions as well. Well, we don't have any confirmation whether he's going to take that job or if he's even received an offer to take that job or not. But he did have some players on campus a couple of days ago, and he put on social media some different comments about different visits and stuff like that with different players. And it does seem as if, and maybe, you just kind of have to still keep going with things until things are official. And again, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't actively looked. I looked a few hours ago whether or not that Penn State D coordinator position had been filled. And I still don't believe it has. But it does seem that Brian Haynes is still all in with Indiana, even after that reported interview. So hopefully that's a good sign, seeing the different things he's put on social media, because that will add a wrinkle into things for the remainder of this offseason. That could be very potentially problematic if he ends up leaving, especially at this point when you've already had guys come in from the portal. You've had guys stay. A lot of important pieces too with Aiden Fisher and D'Angelo Pons and Mikhail Kamara, a number of other guys. Like if you lose all of them, and not to say that you would if Brian Haynes left, but if you did, I mean, you're looking at a totally different outlook for next year if you're having to replace all of that type of production. So hopefully Brian Haynes is hopefully no longer flirting with the Penn State job. Not to say that solely as a fan. He can do whatever he wants, and I'm not going to hate him one way or the other. He can do exactly what he wants to do, as everybody should. But as a fan, I firmly hope that he sticks around for another year with Curt Cignetti, because it's not that Indiana to Penn State. I was going to say it's a lateral move because it is position-wise, right? When you're a D coordinator and you want to go be D coordinator somewhere else, that's a little odd, right? Especially with all of the pay raises that Indiana's been able to give different assistants and stuff like that. Like, it's one thing with Tino Sinceri to go from being the co-OC / QB's coach to just a flat-out OC at UCLA. That's a step up. But to go from D coordinator to D coordinator to a different program, yeah, Penn State's a better program traditionally and more well-known nationally. But who's to say you can't repeat what you've done this year? It does make you wonder, like, does he have a lack of faith that he can have the same results next season? Again, that's just me speculating. Because you'd think if anybody, whether it be Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes, if you're a coordinator for a big-time program, and not that, again, I should say Power 4 program, because we know Indiana historically isn't a big-time football program. But you'd think the next step for both Mike Shanahan and Brian Haynes would be to jump to be a head coach somewhere. So that'll be interesting to see how things play out. Hopefully nothing changes between now and, when the show releases or anything. But hopefully, and again, like I said, hopefully he sticks around to stick with Indiana for the upcoming 2025 season. Because we are in 2025 now, as we're only a few months out from spring ball, believe it or not. That's what we look toward now for football, the football side of things. And you'll also have the spring transfer window. I believe that will take place. I don't remember exactly when that opens up. That'll be the final transfer portal window before we get to the fall. And then we start this whole shebang over again. So very interesting thing to keep an eye on. And of course, we'll react to whatever ends up happening when it comes to Indiana football and Brian Haynes and the assistant coaching situation. So that's all I've got to say on that. I think I've pretty much talked, I guess, the national championship game in general. So with you guys know, for those of you who watch regularly know that I get up very early in the morning. And if Indiana had been playing the national championship, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have stayed up and watched the entire thing. But I watched the opening couple of drives, saw Notre Dame get ahead, thought they looked really good, and then Ohio State responded. Thought it'd be a back-and-forth game. Apparently, Ohio State took control pretty much right after that. And Notre Dame got back in it, but Ohio State really showed that they are the better team throughout that matchup. So, and good to see for Ryan Day, because he's had a lot of slander go his way towards the back portion of the season, especially when Michigan defeated them, of course. And that was to go from rock bottom like that to winning the national championship game. That's what this stuff's all about. One of the best stories, more than likely, for Ohio State football lore moving forward, I would say. So good stuff there. And looking forward to another brand new college football season in the future. So we'll put all that to bed, and let's get into some college basketball stuff from here on out, right? I know that's what all of you guys, most of you guys, at least at this point in the season, are here for. We're here to talk with Ant Wright about Indiana, the Big Ten, all sorts of stuff when it comes to the CBB season going on right now. So let's go ahead and move into that. Without further ado, from the Full Ride Network, it is Mr. Ant Wright here to talk about the Hoosiers, the Big Ten.
Again, it is Mr. Ant Wright from the Full Ride Network. Welcome back to In Touch with Indiana Sports, my friend.
How's it going? Hope everything is good with you.
It's going good. I hope everything's been going with you as well. It has been, and I'm sure in your neck of the woods as well, it has been unusually cold. I mean, I say unusually. It's the middle of January. Maybe we should be more used to the type of weather we've been getting the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the East Coast. It is. I just took the dog out like half an hour ago. It's cold. It is so cold outside. It's like it is like Midwest cold. over
Yeah,
here,
it's
man.
it's pretty much like that all over the country. Even down in the South, I saw that parts of Florida got several inches of snow, which that's something that you think of when you kind of imagine the apocalypse, I feel like.
Man, we just need to get to warmer. No, actually, we don't, because that means that there's no basketball. So
Exactly. That mean we're at
you
the end.
know,
This weather is kind of an indicator that we are in the heart of college basketball season, is it not?
absolutely indoor sports, chilling. We got the closed roof. It's all good. We
Let
got
me
heat.
ask you, starting off, what do you think of this college basketball season so far? We're a little past the midway point, I believe. What are kind of your takeaways of what's going on in these first few months?
It's been a lot of fun. I will say that um, the best teams are I would say Auburn, Iowa State, and Duke. I would put those three as like the absolute highest tier. Um, I think they're all good for different reasons. Defense, whether it's defense, star power, or depth, those three teams have everything, and um, a mix of youth too, right? You have like Duke being led by Khan and Malawak and Cooper Flag, and then you look at someone like Iowa State who's looking at their backcourt experience. Then you're looking at Auburn, just depth 1 through 10, and possibly National Player of the Year, who's out right now, but National Player of the Year candidate Janai Broom. It's been a lot of fun, and then you're seeing that next tier. Not a lot of scary teams, so I can't wait for the tournament. It should be another good one.
Before we get into Indiana and Big Ten stuff, what do you make of the SEC this year? I don't usually like to prop up the SEC as someone, of course, who is an IU fan, and I love seeing the Big Ten thrive. But they kind of feel like they've turned a corner when it comes to just when you look at their schedule night in and night out, there is ranked team on ranked team playing each other in that league this year.
Yeah, so they have an average net of under 30. Like that's the average net.
That's
The
insane.
average net is a quad one. You have Vanderbilt in there as like a 37 on the net. Then it drops like Oklahoma 49, 57 Arkansas, 72 LSU, South Carolina 91. But it's like there are so many good programs, and you have so many new coaches doing a pretty good job. You have so many coaches coming off of a bad year who are doing well. Like, Mizzou was like what, over 18 in the SEC last year, and now they're sitting at 26 on the net. I believe they're ranked. Vanderbilt, new coach, new team. AJ Hogarth is down there. They just beat Tennessee in a wild game. They scored their last point with like 3 or 4 minutes left and like held on at the very end. It was pretty wild. But yeah, they have 3 top 5 teams on the net. They have 6 in the top 14. They have 8 in the top 20. Good coaches down there for sure. I I think that's what it is, more so like a crop of really good coaches who have really adopted and really went all into this new era of NIL and portal. And I feel like these coaches, it was like, hey, look, we either need to go all in here or we're going to get left behind. And they've done a fantastic job down there for sure.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out as we get into the postseason as well. Let's go ahead and get into the real reason I have you here, of course, and that's to talk about the Hoosiers, talk about the Big Ten as well. Indiana's been a very weird case study this year. The one thing I keep going back to, I talked about this basically going into the calendar year. I felt like Indiana was in a very weird spot where you felt like, depending on how the beginning of January went, the season could go one of two directions. And they got off to a really good start, winning their first 3 games in January. And so I kind of thought things were heading in that right direction that you hoped for if you're an Indiana fan. But then you have the 2 road games, or at least one of them was a road game. You had Iowa, where you get completely curb stomped. You have an opportunity against Illinois at home that you thought you could make up with after the terrible showing against Iowa. And then you get curb stomped even more so on your home floor by the Fighting Illini. But since then, you had, I guess they've only played 1 game since then. They're going to play Northwestern tonight, of course. But they had the overtime victory at Ohio State to kind of rectify a little bit what had happened in those previous 2 games. What do you make of this Indiana team? They're very confusing and hard to figure out, and it's been interesting to watch the last few weeks.
First and foremost, I think, a lot of fans are gonna Indiana's under a microscope, right? So everyone is gonna have their opinions on what's going on and what's happening in these games. Omar Ballo, his usage has gone way, way up. The demand for him has gone way, way up, especially with, Malik Renew out. He's been really, really good. You're looking at someone who's top 10 in the Big Ten in scoring. This is conference games only, right? So top 10 in the Big Ten in scoring, number 1 in rebounding. And you're sitting with your team tied for 4th in the league. Now, granted that a lot of those games were against the bottom half of the conference, but you still have to win those games. We're looking around the league. Purdue just lost a 16-point lead and lost to Ohio State at home. They went to Penn State and got destroyed there. We just saw Minnesota have back-to-back wins against Michigan and then go to Iowa and completely control that game. So, you have to be ready in this league at all times. So you got to beat who's in front of you, and that's all that is. But, this team, I feel that you're not going to know who you're going to see after the first 5 minutes, right? You want Mackenzie and Mbako to be a bit better. Luke Goody has been really good and very, very consistent. Anthony Leal defensively has been tough. You do want Miles Rice to kind of get up to that level that Ballo is playing at for this team to have a chance at much better wins and maybe a bit of margin too, which will help a lot with the metrics. I know it's great to win these games, but winning them by 10, 15 points is going to help a lot for sure.
And Indiana has a really tough stretch coming up. Not necessarily, every game is going to be tough in some way, shape, or form in conference play. You have Northwestern tonight. You're going to have Maryland after that. But the stretch of games that Indiana has in front of them from that point forward, you have at Purdue, at Wisconsin, home against Michigan, at Michigan State, home against UCLA, and then against Purdue once again. That stretch right there is going to make or break what Indiana is able to do, whether it's getting to the postseason or really, and if they don't do that, that's going to be more than likely the end of Mike Woodson and his tenure with Indiana.
Yeah, the nice part about the schedule is not all these teams are combining to play together in some all-star game, right? Like you're playing one, you know what I mean? Like you're playing one team at a time. It's not like you're going out there guarding John Blackwell 1 second, then you got to guard Braden Smith, and then you got to guard you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that is the biggest plus here is that all those games are separate. Each one is its own challenge. And like I said, you can beat anyone and anyone can end up slipping up against you. So it all comes down to how Indiana wants to approach. When they have good energy, when they're getting up and down, you feel that, okay, they're in this game. They're in this game for sure. But when that energy is not hidden, you're like, ooh, like against Ohio State, it wasn't hidden at first.
Yeah.
It was not hidden at first. But you know what? Ohio State came out the exact same way. And I'm like, okay, whoever turns it on first is going to win this basketball game. And sure enough, that was Indiana.
What do you think it is about, and I know it's not just Indiana, but of course that's the team I focus on the most. What do you think it is about this team that rely so heavily on things going their way? They tend to fold if they get down big early. Do you think there's a formula to, not a literal formula. Is there an answer, a solution to fixing that? Or is that really, what does that really come down to?
Just team overall confidence. There may be a bit of emotional and mental fatigue there, but you don't want to be a front running team. But sometimes you do need that boost of confidence saying, hey, this is going to be a tough matchup. But then you find yourself up 2-3 possessions early. You're like, wait a minute. Come on, bro. Like we're a Big Ten team too. We have guys. We can come out here and win this game for sure. So sometimes you need a kick in the rear. Now, I do understand that that's not what championship teams do. They kind of bring it no matter what. But just understanding this team, I feel like they're still trying to feel each other out. That's not the best end of January. But, what helps is winning. You can always, continue to get better throughout the week. But when the lights are on, just get the W and keep it moving. And that's kind of what they've been able to do at 5-3 in the league.
When you look at Northwestern tonight, obviously it's a game that could really go either way. I know the ESPN BPI is predicting Northwestern to win this game, more than likely just because of it feels like the home team gets the advantage more often than not in these Big Ten games. What do you think Indiana has to do to ensure that they carry the momentum forward and win a second game in a row against the Wildcats?
If I'm going to be completely honest, just keep the game close.
Okay.
Keep it close. We've seen Northwestern. They've had, I believe, I don't want to give you the wrong numbers here, but in Big Ten play, they have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games decided by like 4 points or less. Right? They have been in 3 overtimes. So if you are able to just keep it close, I believe the only overtime game that they've won was the one against was the Maryland? No, I believe they're 2-1 in overtime. The one loss was to Michigan last game. So yeah, and it comes down to it, like just continue to fight and keep it close, because you can't keep losing games by like 20 points. Right?
Well, yeah, that's the problem. That's one of the weirdest things about this Indiana team, and there's been glimpses of it in previous Mike Woodson seasons, but every single loss, excuse me, that Indiana has this year, Louisville blew them out in Atlantis. Gonzaga blew them out in Atlantis. Nebraska, that was a game that was close throughout until the end. Nebraska pulled away.
6-minute mark. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it ended up becoming a blowout. And then, of course, you have the two most recent losses, Iowa and Illinois, that were Illinois wasn't close from the get-go. Iowa, there were some moments, there were some moments in that game where Indiana, I feel like this has been bothering me all morning. And I don't know if it's the weather, but my throat's trying to get me to shut up. But yeah, you get my point. All of the blowout losses, it's a mystery with this Indiana team. Not that you want them to lose, period, if you're a fan, but you'd much rather see more competitive games, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And that also falls within the metrics of the net, right? And if you're looking at where they are, like taking a screenshot and showing people where like Indiana is, it looks so funny. Because it's like ranked team, tied, 4 teams tied for 4th, 3 teams are ranked top 20, then there's Indiana there. Like, Indiana doesn't get any respect from a tournament standpoint or from a standpoint of being a legit contender, is because of the margins, and if these losses were still losses, but they were all within like 10 or 12 points, Indiana is probably getting votes to be in the top 25, and their net, not going to lie, is probably somewhere around 30. Not as of this morning, it was 63. You'll be more so around Ohio State, somewhere between Maryland and UCLA for sure. But that, the margins just suck, and it's just an anchor for them.
How do you foresee, and I'm not asking you to predict, every single game or anything like that, but just based on how things have gone so far this season and really the pressure that's kind of mounted for Mike Woodson to succeed this year, how do you foresee the rest of the year going? Do you think they'll get in the tournament? If so, do you think it's going to be another kind of first 4 situation where they barely get in? Do you think they miss altogether? What's kind of your thought process on when you think about this, where this Indiana team might be heading?
Honestly, my thought process is, this is going to sound really corny and cliche, but you would much rather like like they still, in my opinion, control their own destiny. And I know they've been frustrating this year, but like all of this is a complete fact, is that they control their own destiny. And they have, I believe they're 2-5 in quad ones. And when it comes down to it, they have only 3 quad 2 games left and 9 quad ones. People view that as, it's a gauntlet of a schedule. And I'm sitting here like, that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? That's an opportunity to go get some wins, to get some really good wins. You know, if you look in the ACC, I mean, and you're someone like Duke or someone like that, like how many more opportunities do you have to really get something on your schedule?
Yeah.
Right?
Because like you didn't mention, we talked about the gauntlet, or you tend to phrase it more positively, as many people would probably like to hear. But when you talk about that stretch, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, you find a way to win 3 of those 4. And again, 3 of those 4 are on the road, so that will be a difficult stretch. You've all of a sudden played your way probably back into the top 25. For one, you've improved your net rating. I don't know what exactly, what seed you'd be looking at that point, but you've easily switched the narrative. You have momentum at that point. There's a lot of good things that can still come from what's ahead, because there is so much season left.
Yeah. And there's no, I would say, there are no more landmines left on the schedule either. So what I mean by that is,
go ahead.
You don't have Q4s and Q3s. Like I'm looking at North Carolina's schedule. They have 4 quad 3s, 2 quad 4s left. Right? Those are games that even if you win, they don't help you, but if you lose, they kill you. Right?
Yeah.
There's no more of those games left on the schedule. So, if you're Indiana, like, if you're a fan, like you have to view this as an opportunity. As someone who we were on the bubble at one point, 08, 09, and that was going to be the year that we felt that we can get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time in like over a decade. I never went through it, but like Beeline, like every week was like, okay, this is the game we have. Like we have to make sure that we seize these opportunities. It's like, hey, we have a tough 5 games coming up. We just got to compete in these games and give ourselves a chance. And it was funny. It was funny. I don't tell this story too often. It's real quick. But we were playing Illinois, right? We were playing Iowa in the Big Ten tournament, right? We won that game. In the locker room, Beeline goes, hey, congratulations. You guys are in the Big Ten tournament for sure now, and we're all happy, right? We play Illinois the next game. We're down 20 in the second half. He calls a timeout, right? He doesn't talk about any adjustments. All he talks about is, we can't get blown out right now. He's like, all these NCAA people are watching this game and they're looking at us. You cannot get blown out in this game. You cannot get blown out. You got to come back. And we ended up losing by like 8 or 9 or something like that. And he was like, okay, whew, that was close, right? So like even he's thinking about, hey, we got to make sure that the margins aren't wild. And we didn't even have net back then, but the metrics still had a huge say in with like the margins and all the efficiency and stuff like that.
Speaking of your Michigan Wolverines, how do you make of their season so far? Of course, sitting at 6-1 in conference play. Dusty May, new head coach, former Hoosier, of course, not former player, but former manager. But what do you make of Michigan's season so far?
Roller coaster. Absolute roller coaster. If you talk to like Michigan fans, if you talk to myself, like this team could very well be undefeated. I mean, we're talking about like the margins that they lose. I think they've lost 5 games by 8 total points. And every loss, they've been the dominant team. The only loss I would have accepted was Wisconsin, but they pulled it out by 3 points. Wisconsin was the only team that Michigan did not dominate. That's the only team that they did not have a lead of at least 11 points. That's the only game. So
you're dead right about them being very close to unbeaten. I mean, you have 2-point loss to Wake Forest, 2-point loss to Arkansas, 1-point loss to Oklahoma, and of course the most recent 3-point loss to Minnesota on the road. So
all those games they were just controlling the whole game. It's very, very frustrating. But it's not something. It's you can't be perfect. You can't play perfect. New players and all that. But yeah, I mean they, like it's a fun brand of basketball. They get up and down. They shoot the three. They play free. They play loose. They have fun. They have good chemistry. It's all about being able to continue to just get better, and Dusty to get better, and those guys to continue to gel and play as a team.
And I want to ask you about Michigan State for a second. Of course, the lone unbeaten when it comes to conference play in the Big Ten. It's weird seeing this resurgence of Tom Izzo. Not that Michigan State teams have been bad the last few years. It's just been a while since we've seen Michigan State truly be the dominant team in the Big Ten. First of all, what do you make of that? And then who do you see being the first team to knock off Michigan State in the Big Ten?
I'm not going to lie. Like, they've had a very how did I say this? Very favorable opening to the Big Ten schedule. I know they beat Illinois, but that was a controversial game. As you can see on the timeline, Illinois fans are still pissed off about it. I'm sure they're still sharing clips and about fouls and all this other stuff. It's kind of wild, but no, like they're going to start getting tested here very, very soon. After this Rutgers Minnesota stretch, which is a quad 2 and a quad 3, then it's going to kind of open up on them quite a bit. They go to LA, then they got Oregon and Indiana at home, then they go to Illinois, then they got Purdue at home, then they go to Michigan, go to Maryland, Wisconsin at home, go to Iowa, Michigan at home. I mean, it's
a tough
it's a
end of
very
the season,
rough February. Yeah, very rough February. I'll tell you what, this game at Rutgers is kind of shaky because Dylan hasn't really been Dylan the last couple games. He's been struggling a little bit after he got sick. But Ace Bailey has been playing as well as anyone in the conference.
Yeah, like, Indiana fans very familiar with one of his amazing performances, 39 points against the Hoosiers.
It's crazy. I think he's like second or third in the Big Ten in scoring in Big Ten games. He's like up there in rebounds. He's like second or third in rebounds. He's like top 5 in blocks. I mean, dude he's doing everything right now for them. And that's been really impressive. And he's doing it on a lot, just jumpers, right? He's doing it on jump shots, which is crazy. But he's been having a good Big Ten season for sure. But, at Rutgers is always interesting. We'll see how that one goes. But they don't really have a slouch. I know they have Minnesota, right? Yeah, Minnesota, but they've been playing well too. So, we'll see. It should be a good one.
Last Big Ten question I'll ask you, and then I want to get into a couple of just very quick things to wrap things up. Who's kind of your sleeper, not necessarily to win the conference, but who do you think can make a run here in this back portion of the season and maybe either get in the tournament or kind of make some noise that isn't doing so right now?
That isn't doing so.
Or at least it's just kind of quietly maybe doing it.
It's interesting because, like, there's definitely a tier and then, like, a significant gap between the rest. I would say they lost last night, but I would say Wisconsin. They could have won that game at UCLA, But that's a team. If you look at their schedule, like it's not. There's maybe like a 5-game stretch that's a little tough. But outside of that, I'm like, yo, this Wisconsin team can go like 13-7, 14-6. And I wouldn't be surprised. And I think John Blackwell has an argument for like player of the year in the league. He's been very, very good and should be first team All Big Ten this year.
Interesting. So I want to get into, I guess this last thing I should say. It is a Big Ten thing of sorts. It involves a Big Ten coach. But I want to ask about 2 head coaches that have been kind of interesting. One of them more recently, one of them has been interesting all year long. But Mick Cronin, he's been kind of a loose cannon when it comes to things he says in press conferences.
Yeah.
What's going on there with him?
I mean, this isn't his first year doing that. I mean, he does this all the time. And when he went off, I mean, he's what, 2-0 since? So not only did his team answered, his rotations have constantly changed. I think Mick Cronin is one of the better coaches in the league for sure. You know, the way that he used Mara last night against Wisconsin, Mara's like 7'3", like 230, 235, this tall, skinny kid from like Spain. He had like 22 on Stephen Crowell. And, you know, he wasn't really playing him much, but he knew that he needed more size. So he pushed Bilodeau, who's like 6'8", 6'9", pushed him from the 5 to the 4. Now he looks more like a Big Ten team, right? And Sebastian Mack is very physical wing at 6'5", 6'6". He's adjusted very well, and I think he's going to start recruiting that too, unless he wants to just get out the league and go to the ACC or something. But you know, he is a loose cannon. You know, he's like West Coast Izzo. You know, he's gonna let the referees know. I did hear that. You know, someone went to the Wisconsin UCLA game and said, I've never heard someone cuss out their players like that. Like, he put some cuss words together that he didn't even think worked well. But man, the way that it, you know, came out, it was just so smooth. It's like this guy's used that a lot to be able to go with that option.
Like the Wolf of Wall Street, but for college basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
And then lastly, Dan Hurley. He had a few outbursts down in Maui, of course, and then there was a video that I believe went viral the other day of him. I don't think people know what the audio was, but he was mouthing to the referee, said, "Don't turn your back on me, or I'm one of the best coaches in college basketball."
He said, "I am the." He said, "I'm the best coach of basketball." I'm like, yo, someone humble this dude, please, man. Please humble this guy. Like, he makes. All right, 2 years ago, last year he had the best team, right? We all know that, right?
Yeah.
But the year before, he was like a 4 seed.
They got hot in the last portion of the
year. Yeah, and like they lucked up and then didn't get certain types of matchups, which what you need sometimes, you know. And then you end up with the Final Four of them, Miami, Florida Atlantic, and San Diego State.
One of the weirdest Final Fours ever.
Right, exactly. So, like, you give that Purdue team last year, you give them that Final Four, Matt Painter's got a ring, you know? Yeah. So, like, sometimes it's just luck of the luck of the draw, but, you know, I don't know, man. It's gone to his head. And then to say that when he's been struggling against a really doo-doo Big East is even funnier. So, it's he's a good coach.
Yeah.
He's a good coach. But to talk to a ref like that, like, you got to tee him up. I don't care. Like, you're not about to big boy me, bro. Like, what do you mean? Like, don't turn my back. Like, who are you? Like, do you have the whistle? Like, yo, like, you are not in charge here, brother.
If you're the best coach in college basketball, you don't need to tell people you're the best coach in college basketball. And that goes for anything, of course.
It's a lot of insecurity in that. A lot of insecurity there.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And you have anything else?
No, man. Just Waiting for another good day of basketball. That's it.
Well, I appreciate you chatting with me for an extensive period of time. Of course, we haven't talked since right before the season when you came on that live show with me, but I appreciate you and your insight as always. And maybe we'll check in again towards the very end of the season and we'll see where things are at that point.
Definitely, man. Indiana just needs to guard Martinelli and Brooks Barnheiser tonight.
We'll see what happens.
Have fun with that. I wonder if Leo's probably guarding Barnheiser, right?
Yeah. I mean, the way that he, like you mentioned, the way he's been defensively, you need somebody to lock down on someone who's going to be that big of a threat tonight. So, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
And Mbago needs to wake up. Or
yes. It's weird. Mbago, this is my last thing I'll say. Mbago this season, it's kind of like a reversal of last year. He had the very slow start in the non-conference as a freshman. He kind of lit things up once he got to Big Ten play. Now it's kind of the exact opposite. He had a really great start to the year. And then really since the turn of the calendar, it's like things have gone really quiet for him. Yeah, you're right. He does need to wake up.
I think he goes with his shot. Like how his shot goes, that's how he goes.
Yeah.
And I think he's too good for that. He's too good for that. And he has much more value than just being someone who is gonna play as long as their shot goes in. And I don't think Indiana is good enough for him to have that idea as well. But you have to give some props. I know Indiana fans are like, F that, never. But some props to Woodson, who's had the balls to bench him a couple times. Right? A lot of people would have just rode with him and try to get him going. But he just said, look, sit your ass down. Goody, you're at the 4, and we're going with 3 guards.
Yeah.
And that, just doing something like that, it's the staff is still checked in, and and they're gonna play the guys who think that they're gonna help win games. So
we'll see what happens. Of course, another big one for Indiana. I mean, really for every game for Indiana is big right now, as long as they're trying to battle for the NCAA tournament. So we'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, appreciate your time, and we'll do this again sometime.
You didn't comment on my Indiana themed.
I didn't even know it was Indiana. I just thought it was one of your big red hats. I know you got a bunch of them. I do like.
I do got a bunch.
Last time you had the blue one on, so I just thought it was a different color this time around. I didn't know it was Indiana
man. Themed. This is my Indiana / Rutgers / Wisconsin / Nebraska.
It's all the red teams. All the red teams. Nebraska.
All the red
throw them in there too.
Man, all the red teams, man. Absolutely.
Good stuff.
It would be Maryland. I'd need 9 more colors.
Maryland needs kind of like the sort of the rainbowy thing going on.
Yeah, the black, red, yellow, white.
Yeah,
black, red, yellow. Yeah, they love their flag here, man. They love the Maryland flag.
So you're in Maryland?
I'm in Maryland. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like 20 minutes from the metro. So I'm on the very edge of the DMV. While being on the very edge of Baltimore. So it's man, Maryland, they love their flag. That's why on the net rankings, people hate that Maryland's 4 different colors. And they'll be like, why is Maryland so many colors?
I like it. I thought that was a unique thing you were doing with that.
Yeah, they were like, what's up with all the colors and why do they get preferential treatment? I'm like, have you seen their flag? Have you seen it? Have you seen their flag? They incorporate it into everything. It's even on the Ravens patch. It's even on the Ravens jersey. And the Ravens jersey is black, purple, and gold. And they still incorporated the Maryland flag in there. It's crazy. Oh my God, they love their flag. And their flag is obnoxious.
It is.
But
it's
they love obnoxious.
They love
the
obscenity.
Yeah. So sorry about the Maryland stuff, but yeah.
No, you don't have to apologize at all. I appreciate anything you want to mention.
Oh, for sure. But yeah,
and we'll do this again sometime very soon.
Yeah, man. Let's go, and just gotta one game at a time. You can't look at the schedule, or else it will drive you crazy. That made up website had Indiana 3-5 at this point. But they're not. They're 5-3.
And they're 5-3.
Yep. Right? So you can't look at a computer that's going to be like, oh, they're going to lose this game. Like, no, like, they wake up, brush their teeth, take a shit just like everybody else. You just got to make sure. You just got to make sure that you come out, you play hard. You don't know what's going to go on throughout the game. You don't know who's going to be hot. You got to trust your teammates and focus on that one game, right? You're not playing an all-star team of all the teams at once. One game at a time.
One game at a time. Mr. Ant Wright of the Full Ride Network. Appreciate your time as always. Big shout out to Ant Wright for his time and insight. A lot of good stuff there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and we'll definitely reach out to him towards the end of the season, especially to get his thoughts on, because at that point we'll kind of know where Indiana stands, and he seems to be more on the optimistic side of things, and it's definitely helped me be more optimistic. I think because I know I recorded that interview before we did the rest of the show. I think it's part of why I brought more of a positive vibe into things when it comes to Indiana basketball. So looking forward to tonight. Hopefully Indiana can keep momentum moving forward in a positive direction, because if not, then we're just right back to where we were. It's like we're going in circles. Hopefully that ends up not being the case later this evening. So we should have a post-game wrap-up show. I don't believe I will be a part of it, so I don't want to say who's doing it or if we're having one for sure. But as always, the plan is to have one if we're able. It will likely be, usually when it's not me, it's definitely Kyler Staley, and then the cast of characters with him could vary. So we'll see what happens. But until Friday, we'll do more. I'll try to revisit some comments on Friday, talk some, do the non-revenue shout-outs, all that good stuff, and of course react to everything that happened with Indiana Northwestern. And then, of course, you got Maryland coming up after that. So until then, this has been another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by HoosierIllustrated.com.